Hi everyone, it's Chrissy from First Day of Home. I don't know if you're like me, but I am so ready for fall to begin. I'm ready for cooler weather, I'm ready to decorate and make this home get in the fall mood. So today I'm bringing you DIY Halloween decorations. All of these are very budget friendly, mostly with items from the Dollar Tree. And I'm joining a wonderful group of YouTubers in a collaboration today. I'm going to put the playlist in the description box below, so be sure to check out my friends once you're done here. If you're new to my channel, thanks so much for coming over. I hope that you'll consider subscribing to my channel by clicking the box below and then ringing the bell to get notified every time I post on YouTube. Now let's go ahead and get our Halloween crafting going on.
Last year I made these pumpkins that were inspired by MacKenzie-Childs, and I put them on my Halloween mantle video, but I never got around to sharing the tutorial. So I thought I'd show you how I made these out of Dollar Tree pumpkins. I had already painted these to look like a farmhouse style, but I wanted to add a little more glam factor. So I painted 2 coats of this white chalk paint, which I'll link to below in the description box. And then I marked off where I wanted to alternate white and black paint. So you can also use a permanent marker if you don't want to have to paint these. It is a little bit tedious. I started off just freehanding it and trying to stay within the little pencil marks that I made, and it got a little bit tricky. So I tried then using some painter's tape. This worked out a little bit better. It made the lines straighter, although you really have to push down the tape so that the paint doesn't seep underneath. But overall, this seemed to work with this particular pattern, and you'll see in a minute I experimented with a few other patterns. I would suggest, if I were to do this again, that you just use either vinyl or, better yet, just a black marker, because from a distance no one's really going to be able to see, and you can get some really good paint markers that will give you nice straight lines, and it's not as hard as controlling a paintbrush. I did want to add a little bit of that glam factor, so this is my favorite go-to paint when I want to paint something gold. It's called Precious Metals, and again, I will link to this product in the description box, but it's just a beautiful, shimmery, sparkly paint, and to me, this is really what makes these look a little more like MacKenzie-Childs. I don't think anyone's going to mistake them if they get up close, but from a distance, it gives you that same elegant glam feel. You'll notice the paint goes on a little thin, so I did do multiple coats after it dried a little bit, and you want to kind of spill over the edges into the black and white paint a little bit just to make it look not so perfect and almost like it's dripping down the pumpkin. I think these turned out so cool. I made a little polka dot version with black and gold dots, just again using paint. I also experimented with gold leaf, which looks great, but not quite as easy to use as the gold paint. For the stems, I used salt dough, and I will link to the video where I talk about making salt dough ornaments. You can also just use real stems and paint them gold. Now for this last pumpkin, I made a star design on top and then just kind of traced out a pattern with pencil, and I followed pictures of what I saw online from MacKenzie-Childs to kind of make it look similar. It was a little more difficult to do, but I have to say I think this is my favorite one. To attach the gold stems, I just used hot glue and stuck it on, and it actually has held really well now that it's been over a year. So you can definitely attach your stems with hot glue, and again, save your stems this year from your real pumpkins, and you can use those on these little faux Dollar Tree pumpkins. You might remember this cake stand from one of my earlier DIY projects that I'll link to up above. It's one of my favorite projects ever because I can repurpose it for any holiday. I just cut out a piece of scrapbook paper the same size as the top of the stand, and all of a sudden I have seasonal decor. I picked up these sheets of scrapbook paper at Hobby Lobby, and they were on sale 4 for $1, which is a really great price. I highly recommend stocking up when they have these sales because you can use this scrapbook paper to make banners, decoupage projects, which I love. And I asked my sons which pattern I should choose because I couldn't decide. They thought this check pattern looked most Halloween-y, so I'm just going to flip it over and trace the outline of my cake stand on the back. And like I said, great price because they're normally 69 cents a sheet, so paying 25 cents a sheet is a pretty good deal. So once I trace my pattern, I'm just going to cut it out, and I'm not going to permanently attach it to my cake stand because, again, I like switching things out for the season. You can use this cake stand for a baby shower or a bridal shower or Christmas. So I'm going to keep switching it out, and again, I've linked to that tutorial. It's a really easy project with chalk paint, and I teach you how to make this antique effect so that it looks a little more farmhouse, rustic. But this is just a fun, easy way to set up a display for Halloween. So you'll notice I call this a cake stand, but really it's more of a riser the way that I use it. I'm going to go ahead and place this on my little buffet and set the pumpkins on top just to create some height, because you want your display to have some visual interest at different heights, and this is a great way to kind of lift some items up. I picked up these cheap frames at Dollar Tree and decided to add a little Halloween art to my display. So I created these vintage prints, which I will link to in the description box below. I made them so that they'll fit in these 4x6 or 5x7 frames. I've got a crow, a tarantula, and a group of spiders. Let me know which one is your favorite in the comments, because I had trouble deciding which ones I wanted to use. I really like the tarantula, and I think the crow adds kind of a spooky dimension, so I'm going to use these two and just pop them in my frames here. And the great part about this, again, is you can reuse it every year. I can change the art out for Christmas, and I will be coming out with more vintage prints on my website, firstdayofhome.com. So be sure you subscribe to my newsletter. That's how you find out about these printables. I make these exclusively for my newsletter subscribers as a treat for subscribing. And I would love for you to join me over on my blog so you can get more seasonal decor like this. It's just ready to print and cut. Now, I printed these just on regular computer paper. You can also print them on thicker cardstock if you want a slightly more refined look. But I just think these prints are so fun to decorate your Halloween mantle or another space in your home. You can even do these as transfers onto tea towels, and I have a video about that. If you're interested, I'll put it in the description box below. Since the frames are a bit simple, I thought I might spruce one up a little bit by antiquing it with that same gold paint that I used for the pumpkins. So I'm just lightly brushing on in the crevices to add a little bit more spooky factor to the frame. So let me know in the comments which of these prints was your favorite, and what do you think about this antiquing effect? I would love to hear from you. Now, you know I love a good silhouette cameo or Cricut project, and I found this little wooden sign at Hobby Lobby for 40% off, so I just couldn't resist. I'm going to put a link to this design in the description box as well. It's a really fun and versatile design that you can use to make t-shirts or put on a mug. There are really a lot of possibilities, and you've all seen this phrase everywhere, hello pumpkin. I just think it's so cute, and I love this design in particular. So I'll share that with you below, and you've seen me do these projects before when I made my DIY farmhouse sign that was a giant sign that went on my fall mantle. So I'll link to that also if you want to do the sign on a bigger scale as a DIY project. It's a lot of fun, and again, I can use that sign over and over again because this is removable vinyl. I love making signs with removable vinyl because you know you're going to change your mind. And so every year or whenever you decide to change your mind, you can always switch out the pattern and brand new sign. There you go. Now I know I'm moving quickly because I do have all of these steps laid out in that farmhouse DIY video tutorial that I linked to. Basically, you just want to weed the excess vinyl. get your transfer tape out to transfer the design and place it onto your wooden sign. Just try to line it up as best as you can. I like this particular transfer tape because it has those grid lines that make it easier to make sure you're at the right angles with the wooden sign. And then the way I cut my design, I can easily line up the words so that I know how it's supposed to go over the pumpkin. And in just a matter of minutes, I've created a beautiful farmhouse sign that looks like it's painted on. You cannot tell, I promise you, you cannot tell that this is not painted. To add a few more pops of color to my Halloween display, I decided to paint these unfinished wood candlesticks. I found these at Hobby Lobby for 40% off with the coupon, so it came out to just a little bit over $1. And I'm using acrylic paint to paint these. You can use chalk paint as well, but I do want to give a big thank you to Plaid Crafts who donated the paint for this project. I ended up using 2 coats of paint just to get good coverage, and then I also decided to paint a few of these little mini taper candle holders. For the first one, I used this beautiful brushed metal paint that I just fell in love with. It goes on really smoothly. It really looks like brushed metal, and I didn't even sand this particular candlestick, and look how smooth it looks. It's really just a beautiful shimmering color. And then for the last one, I chose a really rich red that I think works really well for Halloween because it looks almost like blood, but it will also transition really well into Christmas, and I love a project that can transition across the seasons. I went ahead and added a little bit of that antiquing effect that I talked about with the cake stand, just to give it a little more depth. And I'm really loving the way these candlesticks turned out. They add just a little bit of color. And here's a pro tip: if you have trouble getting your taper candles to sit in there, add a little bit of putty on the end so that it can get nice and stuck in there. And this added just a nice little touch and some height to our display. Boy, I had a lot of fun putting together this video. I hope you enjoyed it too, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Also, let me know in the comments which of these is your favorite. Are you going to try any this season? Don't forget to follow along on Instagram for more fall crafts and ideas, and be sure to check out that playlist in the description box below. I'll see you next time.